Hello and thanks for watching this video on lines on the fingers in palmistry. I'm going to explain a little bit about vertical and horizontal lines on the fingers and on each of the phalanges and what that means and how to accurately conclude from that information. But first of all, I need to explain a little secret in palmistry regarding foretelling the future using the fingers. Now, obviously, I've spoken a lot about each of the fingers as Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, and Mercury, but each of these fingers represents the seasons of the year. So that's spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And on under each of those seasons, each of the phalanges also represents each of the zodiac signs. So if you're a Leo, for example, this would be when you were born, and this would be your first birthday. Now, a horizontal line cropping up during the first year of your life would mean that there is perhaps some sort of obstacle, and it could be anything from your parents arguing to a health issue. But being that it's not completely moved, it's not all the way across the palm, it looks like a setback of some sort that's caused some sort of distress. So that's just an example. But to take it further, let's say as I've given an example here, let's just roll with this example. So Leo, you're born up here, your first birthday. You can count the years on a person's fingers. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on the right hand here, so we move over to the left. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Move back over to the other palm again on the little finger, 18th birthday. And you carry on until you reach the person's current age. Now, for argument's sake, we're going to say that this person is 23, and that would put us into Scorpio. And you can see that at the latter part of the 23rd, is that 23rd year? So 18, 19, 21, 2. So that's the 22nd. So let's say we're on the 22nd year of their life. Now the latter part of in their 22nd year has cropped up some obstacles here. And this, just purely for an example here, and it's not a good example, I just plucked this picture off the internet because it was good for, it's a nice clear image just for demonstrating the phalanges. But from 22 to 25, we've got an island here where the lifeline begins to break away from the headline. We've got a very cautious person here, but during these years, there was some stress at home. I mean, it's very hard to say exactly from this image, but there is a time of difficulty here. And this is also made evident by these obstacles here and one here. So that's 23. 25 also has one here as well. And 25 has quite a significant hurdle there for the person that they're going through. So when using this technique, I highly recommend not looking too far ahead into the future, 5 years or so, because, and I've said this before, the palms show us a view down the road. They sort of say, this is what's going to happen if you continue going down the road you're going. But very rarely do things remain the same. Our circumstances change in the present all the time, and so therefore does our future changes all the time, which is why the lines in our hands change all the time. Some much more than others. Admittedly, the life the head and the heart line change the least, but they still do change. But everything that I just explained, there always has to be things taken into account when coming up with a conclusion. So vertical lines and horizontal lines mean different things on different fingers, and they're more likely to appear on different phalanges than others as well. So, for example, in the Mercury finger, the little finger here, the second phalange of Mercury, the vertical lines on it can provide us with information around a person's possibility to have children, their potential of fertility. So if, for example, we're looking at this person here and we've determined that this phalange of this person's represents their actual year that they're in right now, and let's say for argument's sake that they're 42, and as it happens they are trying for a baby with their wife, and you happen to see very strong vertical lines on that phalange, well, then you know that there is a stronger indication for this person to conceive a child at this time. So, in general, a sloping line is an impediment. It's something that slows the person down. It's certainly an obstacle, but it's not something that can't be bypassed, that it can't be overcome. A line that reaches just from the side of the palm and doesn't really come too much on, doesn't really travel so much onto the front of the palmar surface of the finger, isn't really anything to worry about. It's more like a small hiccup. The more horizontal the line, the deeper the line, and the further it runs across, the bigger the obstacle, the less prosperous this year will be overall because of this sort of setback. And it could be something relatively simple, but it's still managed to create quite a large hurdle for this person. And depending on who this person is and their values, this could be, from one person, this could be their car breaking down and they're unable to carry out their job and they fall behind on their bills, or it could be simply that they've become depressed. It's very difficult to know, and in order to kind of fine tune your predictions, you have to look at absolutely everything the palm is telling you to draw an accurate conclusion. And sometimes it's best to come back to the drawing board and look at the hand as a whole. What does the hand shape tell you? The shape of the fingers and the hands tell you to begin with. What kind of person are they? What is the template of this person's character? Are they the sort of person who just doesn't care about bureaucracy or rules or laws or work ethic? Perhaps they have no care in the world for money. If so, this obstacle is likely nothing to do with money. If, however, they are very money focused, which the palm will show many signs of, in particular the headline flicking upwards towards Mars positive, this sort of setback may well be more likely financially related. I'm just trying to provide some context in terms of accuracy when making predictions. So, as discussed, horizontal or transverse lines are not very positive. Vertical lines are generally a much more prosperous sign. They are less common on the third phalanges. Sorry, I had that completely wrong. The first phalanges are almost, it's much more common for these to be less lined than the rest of the fingers. So lines, 3 upward strokes on the first phalange of Mercury is often a sign of thyroid imbalance. 2 lines is probably not the same thing, but 3 lines or more is certainly a sign of thyroid imbalance, especially if you see this on the left and the right palm. And for this, I always recommend sea kelp, avoiding using aluminium, and using a water filter as well to reduce the chlorine and fluoride intake. So when the first phalanges appear line free, pretty much as this person has here, they will be generally problem free and pleasant years, but they won't be materialistically prosperous necessarily. Vertical lines found on the third phalanges of all fingers, like this person has here, is a sign of popularity and support from quite a large social network. As I say, generally upward lines are positive, and it can be seen as energy reaching down from entering through the fingers into the palm itself. And to further this example of lines on each of the third phalanges, if you have lines on all of your phalanges, you are someone who is attractive and well loved by all, someone who has a warm and positive spirit, who radiates that positivity and will generally have quite a prosperous and happy life because of the person they are. And now I'm going to talk about each of the fingers individually, each segment of each finger, and just to go over the vertical and horizontal lines and what those mean. So one isolated deep vertical line on the tip of the Jupiter finger, the first phalange of Jupiter, signifies someone who is highly spiritual and carries their spirituality with them and expresses this and demonstrates their spirituality in everyday life and influences others using their spiritual beliefs. It's a very positive sign, and it's quite an unusual sign. As I say, this has to be isolated. It doesn't count if it's connected to any one other line coming in there. Now, a vertical line found in the same manner, so again, deep, clear, isolated, not connected to any other line in the phalange there. If you notice this is a sign of someone who is ambitious, able to carry out their ideas in a way that is very successful. They will almost likely be very successful as a result, and they can positively manipulate others in situations to carry out this ambition. It's a very positive sign. It's a mark of noble ambition and respect and determination. And a deep, isolated horizontal line here, and that's not one that's coming from the side, the whole way across. It has to be isolated, it has to be deep. This signifies someone who is potentially deceptive, that's unreliable, that may carry out sort of untruthful actions in order to get where they want to be. Now, someone that has a line that reaches from the Jupiter mount, a vertical line that's deep, reaches from the Jupiter mount right up onto the second phalange of Jupiter. This is quite a rare marking, and it shows someone who, through good deeds, has in their community become a noble and respected figure through some sort of hard work, has ambitiously proven themselves and will be seen as and respected among their peers and probably envied by others. So it could be someone that's sacrificed, some aspect of themselves to save others, and as a result has gained public recognition and reputation. A singular vertical line on the third phalanx of Jupiter. Again, isolated, deep. Shows a person who is able to relinquish material worldly goods, who's able to live an honourable and simple life and achieve their aims without gross misuse of poor habits, so alcoholism, drugs, sex, and food, and materialism. So is able to live sort of a simplistic, material-free life, and without that want for satiating the sort of more immediate basic needs. A person with two deep vertical lines on the third phalanx of Jupiter is someone who is pursuing more than one ambition and pursuing them well. Someone who certainly seeks out wealth and comforts, but also someone who works relentlessly, possibly someone that works two jobs. I would look for signs in the palm that point towards other potential for success. If I saw this as kind of not a very common sign. So now we move on to Saturn. The Saturnian, so a person who is very Saturn finger prominent. The single isolated deep vertical line in the first phalanx of Saturn represents, it sort of accentuates and exaggerates the person's ideology of Saturn. And Saturnians are very they're very aware. They're so aware that they feel tremendously, and as a result they become quite sort of despondent and quite depressive, pessimistic, self-destructive, And the vertical line here, it creates more possibility for these thoughts and feelings. And although this sort of inner self-destructiveness is exaggerated here with this sign, it's likely they'll just become quite sort of isolated, isolate themselves rather than do anything to harm themselves. To have three vertical markings of this nature, it exaggerates, it amplifies this negativity even more so, and they will be all consumed by this idea of fatalism, nihilism, pessimism, this almost plagued by the thoughts of wanting to die. It's a wholly unfortunate sign to have, and anyone that you see with this sort of marking, refer them, urge them into counselling and guidance, mental health, professional mental health support. Now, this is an interesting one. A deep, isolated vertical line on the second phalange of Saturn represents someone with a deep understanding of metaphysical, spiritual, esoteric matters, someone who gains great wisdom and ability to gain great wisdom. However, if that line extends from the past, both reaching into the first and the third phalange, then they are subjected to a life of isolation because they are seeking out folly. So I suppose it's the difference between being open-minded and realistic and stretching into the realms of naivety, and so they are subjected to a life of misunderstanding, and they find themselves, as I say, isolated by their peers and their community. A vertical line on the third phalanx of Saturn is someone who has achieved an honorable reputation through a military prowess, someone who has achieved heights in bravery in war, perhaps received honors or medals for their exploits or military strategy, and it's quite a different meaning altogether on the third phalange here. And often this person with this marking will receive fame as a result of their military exploits. Now, a line found on the first phalanx of Apollo is someone who is dedicated to the pursuits of seeking out beauty, and their ideas are so profound and embedded in what embedded in hard to explain. They draw their inspiration from all things beautiful around them in nature, people, textures, colors. They almost see a different reality, and they're unable to see what the average person sees, but they have an exceptional gift to carry out their ideas, and often these people are designers, creatives of some sort, artists, and it's quite rare to see this. So when a person has 3 lines on the tip of Apollo, the first phalanx, they are so endowed with creative genius, so filled with ideas that it's as though they're chasing too many dreams at once, and they're unable to apply their manifest their ideas into action. And so riddled are they with these genius creative ideas that they often become suffer with poor mental health. A singular line on the second phalange shows the prospect, the possibility, potential for fame from their ingenuity, their ideas put into action. So inventors often have a deep singular mark here, famous inventors. A singular line on the basal phalanx of Apollo symbolizes someone who reaches personal happiness and lives a life of sort of, that's the only way I can really put it, individualized personal happiness, and reaches just a level of stability and security that provides them with all of the necessary comforts that they require. A line on the tip of Mercury, a vertical line here, a singular, isolated, deep vertical line on the first phalanx of Mercury, symbolizes someone with an aptitude to communicate and an ability to understand the occult, and often has intuitive abilities as well. So if ever you see this marking, look for a Mercury line, a crescent-shaped Mercury line, or an isolated cross in the center between the head and the heart line, or another marking like Solomon's ring, even if it just creeps a little way up the side, and that will solidify the meaning of this. A singular deep line on the second phalanx of Mercury is often a very sort of serious individual involved in some sort of scientific pursuit that achieves some sort of level in their field of research, some sort of high level accolades, academic level in their field of research. Now, a clear line, this is a very small phalange, third phalange here of Mercury, but a clear, deep, isolated vertical line on the third phalange of Mercury is supposedly represents someone who is a born deceiver, a thief, someone who will do anything to cheat their way to the top. And that about sums up this video on the vertical and horizontal lines on the fingers in palmistry. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've managed to learn a few things, and please like, please subscribe, that's very important, please share, and keep watching. there's more videos to come. There's many more things that the fingers can tell us. There's many more symbols and signs, palmar markings out there. The thumb is yet to be explored fully in my videos as well. And I'm really excited and looking forward to producing more of these videos. Thank you for all of your comments and suggestions. Please keep it all coming. Thank you for watching.